Next time you walk into a supermarket, do not look at the shelves, do not look at the bright signs, and do not look at the colorful displays. Instead, I want you to look down and pay absolute, undivided attention to your own feet. You move forward, you turn a corner, and you pick up a basket. You genuinely believe that you are an independent human being exercising your own free will, choosing your own direction, and making conscious decisions about where to walk and what to buy. But the terrifying reality is that millions of dollars of behavioral research and psychological engineering have already chosen that exact path for you long before you even stepped through the sliding glass doors. There is an invisible architectural grid operating right beneath your consciousness, a psychological blueprint engineered to manipulate your body and exploit your biological instincts without you ever realizing it. It is called the law of the right, an invisible, unspoken rule of retail architecture designed to force 90% of consumers to unconsciously take a right turn and spend up to 30% more money than they ever intended to. This is the exact story of how corporate scientists and master marketers programmed your brain to turn right, how they exploit your evolutionary biology to drain your wallet, and most importantly, the psychological tools you need to fight back against this invisible manipulation. To understand why you turn right, we have to look at how we navigate the physical world on a daily basis. Think about how driving rules work in most parts of the world, especially in places like the United States. People drive their cars on the right side of the road. Because of this deeply ingrained, repetitive daily habit, when people exit their vehicles and become pedestrians, they carry that exact same behavioral pattern into the retail environment. When people walk down a sidewalk, through a crowded hallway, or into a building, they possess a powerful, subconscious tendency to stay to the right. Retail psychologists and store architects have a specific technical name for this deeply rooted human phenomenon. They call it the invariant right. It is a predictable, unyielding behavioral constant that governs human movement. When you enter an enclosed retail space, your brain is immediately flooded with new sensory data. You are processing the lighting, the smells, the music, and the layout. In that exact moment of sensory processing, your brain falls back on its most comfortable, deeply practiced evolutionary autopilot setting, which is to steer your body toward the right side of the space. But the trap does not start operating the very microsecond you step over the threshold. The trap is far more sophisticated than that. When you first walk through the main entrance of a massive supermarket, those very first 5 to 10 steps you take represent a highly specific psychological zone. Retailers call this area the decompression zone or the transition zone. Think of it as a psychological buffer strip. Your brain needs a few seconds and a few meters to adjust from the fast-paced, noisy outside world to the controlled, engineered environment of the store. Your walking speed naturally begins to decelerate, your eyes adjust to the specific indoor lighting, and your brain begins to tune in to the environment. Master retailers know that you are completely blind in this zone. Your mind is still transitioning, so you are not ready to process specific product information or prices. Because of this, smart supermarkets will sell absolutely nothing in this specific 5 to 10 step area. They leave it relatively open and clear because they know that if they put an expensive item or an important display right at the threshold, your brain will simply glaze over it and your feet will carry you right past it without you registering its existence. They intentionally give you those few paces to slow down and let your guard drop. But the moment you exit that decompression zone, the psychological trap springs shut. The very first turn you are funneled into making on your right-hand side is where supermarkets construct what is known as the power wall. The power wall is the most valuable, high-stakes piece of real estate in the entire physical store layout. It is the high-impact canvas where retailers display the products that possess the highest visual stimulation, the absolute largest profit margins, and the most expensive luxury items in their inventory. They know that your energy is at its absolute peak, your focus is sharp, and your visual field is wide open. By placing their most profitable, enticing, and high-status products on this first right-hand wall, they ensure it is the very first major architectural feature to slam into your consciousness. It sets the entire tone for your shopping trip, immediately exposing your subconscious to premium brands and high-end goods before you've had a chance to look at your shopping list. This architectural manipulation works so effectively because it aligns perfectly with two fundamental biological asymmetries built directly into the human body: the dominant eye effect and the dominant hand effect. Approximately 70 to 90% of the global human population is naturally right-handed. This overwhelming biological bias shapes how we interact with physical space. When you are walking down a supermarket aisle, your eyes do not move randomly. Because the vast majority of us grew up learning to read text from left to right, our visual tracking habits mimic that exact pattern. As you move forward along a right-hand pathway, your eyes naturally scan the shelves from left to right, just like reading a line in a book. And where do your eyes naturally come to a rest at the end of that scanning motion? They stop on the right side of the aisle. The final destination of your gaze aligns perfectly with your dominant right arm. This means that the products placed on the right side of the flow of traffic are not only the easiest for your eyes to focus on, but they are also positioned at the exact psychological and physical sweet spot for your dominant right hand to effortlessly reach out, pick up, and drop into your cart without requiring any conscious mental or physical effort. To maximize this biological advantage, corporate retailers combine the law of the right with another ruthless merchandising axiom: the principle that eye level is buy level. The most expensive products, the major national brands, and the items that carry the highest profit margins for the supermarket are never hidden away randomly. They are placed meticulously on the right-hand shelves at an exact height of roughly 4 to 5 feet from the ground, which aligns perfectly with the natural eye level of an average adult. These specific shelves are known in the retail industry as the cash cows. They are the golden zones of profitability. When you are walking through the aisle, your eyes naturally hover in this zone, and your hand naturally reaches for it. If you want to find the cheap items, the bulk goods, or the supermarket's private labels like Great Value or Up and Up, you have to actively fight against this design. The store intentionally hides those low-margin, budget-friendly options on the very bottom shelves or on the far left side of the display, where your eyes rarely travel and where you have to physically bend down or strain your posture to reach them. They make saving money physically inconvenient while making overspending as effortless as breathing. This entire sensory trap is rooted in a fascinating piece of behavioral economics and cognitive psychology called the anchoring effect. When your eyes scan from right to left as you navigate, the very first item you see on that premium right-hand side acts as a psychological anchor for your brain. It establishes an immediate, subconscious benchmark for value and quality. Imagine you are walking down an aisle and you see a premium, beautifully packaged item on the right side, priced at $500. Your brain immediately grabs that number and locks it in as the standard baseline value for what that type of product should cost. As you continue walking and eventually glance over to the left side of the aisle, you spot a similar item priced at $150. Your brain instantly performs a rapid, unconscious comparison and shouts that this is an incredible bargain and a massive discount. You feel an overwhelming rush of satisfaction because you think you are gaming the system and finding a deal, but in reality, you have been completely tricked by the anchor. $150 is still an incredibly high price to pay for that item, and you probably never intended to spend that much money when you walked into the store. The $500 item on the right was never actually meant to be sold to the masses. Its true, calculated, psychological purpose was to act as an anchor, making the expensive $150 item on the left look incredibly cheap by comparison. This psychological manipulation is highly time-sensitive and relies on exploiting the natural depletion of human willpower throughout a shopping trip. When you first enter a supermarket and move through that initial right-hand zone, your brain is fresh, alert, and fully energized. Your mental willpower reserves are completely full. In this high-energy state, you are highly susceptible to making emotional, aspirational, and expensive purchasing decisions. You see luxury items, premium organic foods, and high-end goods on the right, and your fresh brain says that you deserve it, that you want to experience that lifestyle, and you willingly buy into the dream. But as you spend 45 minutes navigating the bright lights, the crowded aisles, and the endless choices of the supermarket, a phenomenon known as decision fatigue sets in. By the time your feet carry you deeper into the store and around to the left-hand side, your willpower reserves are completely drained. Your brain is exhausted from making choices. At this point, you completely stop looking at luxury or emotional items. You switch entirely into a survival buying mode, only picking up the bare absolute necessities that you absolutely must have to get through the week, like milk, eggs, bread, and toilet paper. Retailers understand this cognitive timeline perfectly. They know they must harvest your premium, high-margin dollars on the right side of the store while your brain is still fresh and weak against emotional temptation, because by the time you reach the left side, you will only buy what you absolutely need. To systematically exploit these psychological vulnerabilities, master retail designers operate under three unbreakable commercial rules. The first rule is known as the premium right, which dictates that right equals expensive and left equals cheap. The right side of the store is meticulously designed to sell dreams, lifestyles, and premium experiences. It is where you find the artisanal cheeses, the imported wines, the organic produce, and the high-end skincare products that generate massive profit margins. The left side of the store, by contrast, is engineered to sell survival, utility, and raw savings. It is where you find the plain white boxes, the bulk paper towels, and the basic cleaning supplies. To maximize total revenue, a store must ensure that every single item capable of generating massive cash flow is placed squarely within the natural, right-handed flow of consumer movement. The second rule is eye level is buy level, and this rule adapts perfectly to different human demographics. For adults, the sweet spot sits firmly between 1.2 and 1.5 meters off the ground on the right side of the aisle. This is where the most expensive brands purchase prime shelf space to capture adult attention. But watch how ruthlessly this rule adapts when it comes to marketing to children. Products meant to target children, like sugary cereals, colorful toys, and cartoon-branded snacks, are intentionally dropped down to a height of under 1 meter off the ground, but they remain firmly on the right side of the child's walking path. The retailers are targeting the exact same biological right-hand bias and natural eye level of a child, ensuring that the kid sees the product, reaches out with their dominant hand, grabs it, and throws it into the cart before the parent even realizes what happened. The third rule is the mandatory creation of speed bumps. In the retail industry, there is an absolute law. The faster a customer walks through a store, the less money falls out of their pockets. Speed is the absolute enemy of retail profitability. If you sprint through the store, you only buy the specific items you came for. To combat this, the right side of the shopping pathway is intentionally littered with deliberate visual and physical obstacles. Retailers call these speed bumps. They take the form of island displays protruding into the aisle, standalone promotional bins, or a herringbone floor layout where the shelves are angled like fish bones. These physical obstructions force you to slow down, break your walking rhythm, change your foot direction, and look directly at the high-priced, high-margin items stacked right in front of your face. Every single obstacle is a calculated attempt to rob you of your physical momentum and force your eyes to scan the merchandise. Despite the undeniable science behind these strategies, many business owners and amateur marketers make catastrophic, costly mistakes when trying to implement them because they fail to understand the nuance of human behavior. The first massive blunder is the naive assumption that simply stacking expensive items on the right side of the door will automatically guarantee massive sales. This approach fails spectacularly because it completely ignores the physical reality of the decompression zone. If an amateur shopkeeper places an incredibly expensive, high-margin luxury product within the first 2 meters of the right-hand entrance, it lands directly in what retail psychologists call dead space. Because customers are still moving fast, adjusting their eyes and slowing down their pace, they are completely blind to anything in that initial zone. They will walk right past that expensive product without a single glance. To make the law of the right work, the premium items must be placed strategically after the decompression zone, right where the consumer's pace has stabilized and their mind is ready to receive visual inputs. The second major misconception is the arrogant belief that modern consumers are far too smart, tech-savvy, and educated to fall for these ancient, primitive retail traps. This argument completely collapses when you realize that the law of the right is not a cognitive trick or an intellectual puzzle that you can solve with logic. It is an unconscious biological and evolutionary behavior built directly into human anatomy and neurology. Even if you hold a master's degree in consumer psychology and are fully aware of every single strategy being used against you, your brain still automatically scans from left to right, and your body still instinctively gravitate toward the right-hand open space when entering a new room. You cannot use your conscious, rational mind to override millions of years of physical evolution and deeply ingrained behavioral conditioning. The instinct operates entirely beneath your conscious awareness. The third massive error is believing that the law of the right is an outdated concept that only applies to old-fashioned brick-and-mortar retail stores. This is completely false. In the modern digital age, this exact evolutionary behavior has migrated directly onto our digital screens, shaping the entire field of user experience and user interface design. When you land on a website, an e-commerce platform, or a mobile app, your eyes move across the digital screen in highly predictable, thoroughly researched geometric patterns known as the F pattern or the Z pattern. Web designers know exactly how your eyes travel, and because we read from left to right, your gaze naturally sweeps across the screen and finishes its journey on the right-hand side. This is exactly why when you look at a software subscription page, an e-commerce store, or a digital booking platform, the Buy Now button, the premium upgrade options, and the most expensive software packages are almost always highlighted in bright, high-contrast colors on the far right column of the pricing tier. Digital designers are using the exact same visual anchoring principles as physical supermarkets, placing their high-margin cash cows in the digital right-hand path of your eyes to anchor your perception of value and quietly drain your bank account through a digital screen. Now that you know the hidden matrix of retail architecture, you cannot unsee it. You have a choice. You can continue to be a passive puppet manipulated by store layouts, or you can weaponize this knowledge to protect your money and optimize your own commercial endeavors. To truly master this, you must begin practicing a deliberate observation walk. The next time you step into any supermarket, neighborhood cafe, clothing boutique, or electronics store, do not look at the products as a consumer. Look at the space as a behavioral scientist. Force your eyes to look immediately to the right and audit the environment. Ask yourself exactly what specific item they have placed on that power wall. Look at the price tags and compare them directly to the items tucked away on the left side of the store. Look down at your feet and notice the physical speed bumps, the island displays, and the layout changes designed to shatter your momentum and slow your walking pace. Keep a detailed mental or digital journal of these psychological traps. By consciously identifying the trap, you immediately strip it of its unconscious power over your behavior. If you are an entrepreneur, a creator, or a business owner designing a product line, a menu, or an online catalog, you must actively deploy the right-hand anchor to maximize your own revenue. When designing a physical product display, a restaurant menu, or a digital checkout page, ensure your highest-priced premium product is placed prominently in the primary right-hand position or the final resting point of the human visual scan. Use that premium product as a powerful psychological anchor to establish an immediate standard of high quality and luxury. Once that anchor is firmly planted in the customer's mind, place your standard medium-priced products to the left of it. The consumer's brain will automatically compare the two, perceive the standard product as an absolute bargain, and happily complete the purchase thinking they made a brilliant money-saving decision. Finally, you must perform a ruthless audit of your own commercial spaces and digital interfaces to eliminate dead zones. Walk through your own store or browse through your own website with a highly critical eye. Search for any glaring structural errors where you might be accidentally placing low-margin items, cheap clearance goods, or basic necessities in your prime right-hand power zones. If you find cheap items sitting on your adult eye-level shelves on the right side of the flow of traffic, you are bleeding money every single day. Immediately swap those products out. Move your high-margin premium items into that golden right-hand real estate and hide your low-margin budget goods on the lower shelves or the far left side. By aligning your physical or digital business layout with the natural biological instincts of the human body, you can drastically optimize your revenue per square meter or per pixel without ever needing to pressure your customers. Stop being the victim of the law of the right. Understand the architecture of manipulation. Look down at your feet, and the next time you walk into a store, make a conscious, powerful decision to turn left.